Hello, Gedeon 357 here for the Star Frontiers Gamer, and we are on video number 2. And I just wanted to cover today the fan rules, the Skill Frontier. And I'm going to explain why I don't use these anymore, why I'm kind of against using these. They're a really great system. I loved and used these for a decade and a half, really. I think it's a great system. It's very flexible, but I've reached the conclusion where I just don't want to use them anymore, and I will explain that reason as well. And it plays into my solution for some things that people expect out of their modern role-playing game and how you would just do that in Star Frontiers. So let's get into it with a screen share of the Star Frontiersman number 9. You just Google Star Frontiersman fan magazine. You will find the website. You want to find starfrontiersman.com. You will find the magazines. You can also find them on drive-through. And let's right in here right away. Skilled Frontier, first article, so we don't have to go far. And we're going to zoom in and I'm going to talk about this. Now, there was a perception that the original rules as written Alpha Dawn skill system was a bit clunky. I understand that perception. I've just gone back to it. And these were well received when they came about. The difference between this and the Alpha Dawn skill system is that not only do you have, and maybe we should increase this for visibility. So right here under skill areas, this is showing you the experience point cost for primary, secondary, and tertiary skill areas. This is the change, that you're going to have skills that are your primary skill area. You will then have 2 skill areas that are your secondary skill area. Everything else will be tertiary. So you will excel at your primary. You will do well at your secondary, and the skills that are going to be really slow for you to advance at, i.e. you're going to suck at them, are your tertiary. You can still purchase them. It's just you're going to invest a lot of experience points to get those tertiary skills. So you're probably not raising them beyond 1 or 2 levels. But you are going to excel right up to higher levels in your primary and potentially your secondary skill areas. I liked this because it allowed you to have a character. His primary skill area might have been military skills. He was good at weapons, and he wanted to be a combat medic. So you would take the science skill area as a secondary area. So you could be purchasing that medical skill and not paying exorbitant EXP cost. Or you wanted to be a character who, they were the pilot, they were the driver, they were the transporter. So your primary skill area is going to be piloting, that you're able to operate vehicles and learn these skills real quick and pick them up. And, and then as a secondary skill area, you pick up pick up military. So you not too bad at the shooting skills. And then, maybe technician skill area, technical skill area, so that you pick up the skills to work on vehicles. There you go. That's a well-rounded character, and you've picked these skill areas. So with this system, you picked a primary skill area, you picked 2 secondary skill areas, and then everything else was considered tertiary, and it cost you more. This is the point right here, explaining this to people when I said, hey, I'm running a game, we're going to be using these rules, and people were familiar with the Alpha Dawn rules. This was the part they had a problem with, was the picking all the skill areas. They didn't seemed to be the hurdle that a lot of people have. They would get confused on this. So if you get past this, this is actually a pretty good system to use. And then you get down here into all these different skill areas. They're different from, and see, they should not have been labeled PSA. Should have been just labeled skill area because you don't know if it's the PSA or the secondary skill area. So that might have also led to the confusion. So the agent had skills like stealth, persuasion, thievery, detective. You had an artist skill area, visual art, so on. Some people actually chose these, make for a rounded character. Linguist, linguist skill area, military, pilot. This was an adaptation and a somewhat significant change from the Alpha-Dawn skills, which are a little more boxy. Yes, I give you that. Scholar, literature, politics, economics, pop culture, law, philosophy, science, again, medics, psychosocial, environmental, space sciences, which roles to do with astrogation, starship engineering. I did not like that. The classic Nighthawks rules, astrogation is different from starship engineering. Here they just rolled it into one skill. And then scout. Then the scout skill, animal handling, athletics, survival skills. Is there anything up top here? Navigation. That would be on a planet, not astrogation. Mariner, swimming, diving, operating craft. So, even this is a little bit boxy. And then your tech skill, which was your classic technician, computers, robotics. But there's provision for more skills if somebody came up with a skill that they wanted to have for their character. There it is. So this, I'm going to shoot my own phone. So this was a much more open skill system. You had to get past the confusion that could be engendered by these primary, secondary, and tertiary. And that seemed to be the biggest challenge people had in using this. It seemed to me. And I just reached the point where I got tired of explaining it. And I said, you know what? Alpha-Dawn, rules as written. There we go. Now, why don't I really want to use this? Well, I was running a Port Lauren, Chronicles of Port Lauren game, which started out as the characters were part of the Port Lauren Police Department. They were the crime scene unit that would respond and investigate crimes. And you had characters who were, with environmental skill, who were doing the trace sampling. And, one character was the coroner. And so he would be examining the body. And then, we had a technician on the team. He would examine computers and robots, and I really needed to put more robots in the setting for him to dig into. But and then we had a guy who was more. In fact, the character's name was Warmock, and so he was very war oriented. So he was kind of our muscle on the team, and had the distinction of stopping a fleeing criminal by shooting their air car out of the air so that it crashed and burned and killed the guy. But so I was running this game, and what I noticed was one of the characters had Agent PSA, and so they had been taking detective quite a bit. They had been bumping up the detective skill roll. And so that made them the default character for looking for clues because he's got detective. So he's rolling on that. It just seemed natural. And this is kind of like in D&D when they do a perception check. Do a perception check. And, so it made that one character that. But I really felt like the whole team should be the people looking for the clues. And I didn't want it to just be one character who has had agent the agent skill area, and they've been bumping up their detective skill. So as I thought about the issue, I just thought, well, why isn't the perception check really just a LOG, logic or intuition check? Now, if the and it could be either one. just making an ability score check, because if it's a Sherlock Holmes inductive reasoning type of elementary, my dear Watson, type of perception check where he's going to spot something because it's logically inconsistent or it stands out that way, you would just have him do a logic ability score check and move on. Or if it's an intuition thing, that the character would have an intuition to just something in his intuition tells him to look at that mantelpiece clock, look behind it. It seems like that clock's a little bit far out from on the mantle. And so it's more of an intuition thing. You have him doing the intuition check, because intuition has become a bit of a dump stat in Star Frontiers, where you just go ahead and grab during character creation and move some intuition over to logic, bump your logic score up, because so many more skills actually would test, particularly in this system, in the Skilled Frontier system, would test off of logic. So I got tired of explaining it. I got tired of the confusion that it was engendering with players who had played Star Frontiers for years, but they've not read this article and they're not aware of this. And I just got tired of the confusion that was coming along and having to explain and re-explain. And we're already like four episodes into the campaign, and then I suddenly realized, wow, he's not really tracking on that new skill system, which I thought was great. But I now look at this skill system and I see that maybe it's not well written, and maybe it doesn't explain things well. Especially since I'm noticing right here as I talk, this PSA. This should not be PSA there. It should just be agent skill area, because you don't know if it's secondary or tertiary. It could be primary, but it might not be. And I definitely don't like this detective skill, because it becomes the default perception check, and if either you have it or you don't. And well, I don't have detective skills, so I can't do a perception check. It doesn't help a detective type game. And so I want my detective type game to be anybody can do detecting. Anybody can find a clue. And, roll your logic, roll your intuition. I'll make the judgment call on what I feel it should be. Mostly it'll be logic, but it could also be intuition. I might just call for an intuition check and say something about this thing bugs you. So you look at it and you discover there's a little hidden panel on the back of the mantelpiece clock. There you go. So that's how I would handle, the more modern desire in role-playing games to have spot checks, perception checks. Just default back to the ability scores. It's kind of what they're there for. And I would go with the Alphadon rules as written. They're a nice delineation between your military, your tech, and your science skills. And, the only caveat there is I would probably move demolition skill over to technician skills. That would be the only house rule I would make on that. But so I'm pretty much a more rules as written. Let's just go with them as they were written and just move on. People are really familiar with the rules as written. And as for things like detective checks, it's an LOG check. It's an INT check. Whether I decide that it's more of a logic is going to determine something, or intuition would find something. So that'll be up to me as a game master to decide which way it's going to go. Mostly it'll go logic. And that's how I would roll. And so I do like these rules. They might be something that you like. And let's get her back to page 1. So I do like these fan rules. I've liked them for a long time, and I thought they were great. But in using them for a decade and a half, I've just come to the conclusion I feel like I just need to default back to the rules as written. I definitely don't like some little features of these fan rules, particularly the merging of astrogation and starship engineering into one rule. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of the detective skill for becoming the default spot check, perception check in a game. And there's a lack of the prerequisites for the Nighthawk skills in here. So that's where I'm at. These are a great set of rules in here. You might like them. I've decided against them. I've defaulted back to rules as written for now. My attitude might change in 5 years. Who knows? But for now, I've defaulted back to the rules as written. So this is Géant357 for the Star Frontiers Gamer, signing out. And in the meantime, keep on gaming.